So the ride and drive events that we do with, letting people come out and test drive vehicles. A lot of companies come out and show off their cars, and they're all super nice. But the Rivian, it's quite a vehicle. I've told you before about like solid state batteries. It's called a solid state battery because lithium ion has a liquid electrolyte, and they're filled with this liquid that allows the electrolytes to move from the anode to the cathode, and that sends a charge, and then it moves in reverse when you're charging it. So the solid state batteries have a solid electrolyte. They don't have any liquid in them, and so that means that you can make them more energy dense. From things that I've read, they can be anywhere from 2 to 10 times the energy density of comparable lithium ion batteries.
I saw a study that it's 3 times worse than drunk driving, the amount of time you're distracted. I don't know if that's completely true. I'll look it up, but it's pretty bad how your eyes, they're tracking them when you're looking at your touchscreen compared to looking at your phone. It's the worst one.
Yeah, that twist like that and to get it aligned. He said, "Yeah, I can," but biggest mistake of my life. If you ever have the option to have your arm reset, take the anesthesia and don't have them do it really fast, because that's the closest I've ever got from just like actually blacking out from pain. My name is Cody Innis, and I am a Ph.D. candidate in the mechanical engineering department at Tennessee Tech University, and I work mainly with electric vehicles under Dr. Ping Chin.
You had a conference pretty recently. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, so I just got back from Jersey City. It was the MECC conference, and I was presenting a paper over speed profile optimization based off of dynamic programming. So it's basically if you have, a group of leading vehicles on a route, and you can have some initial information about their speed and when they're going to be available on the same route as you can figure out the optimal speed profile to travel on that route in order to platoon with those leading vehicles and cut down on the aerodynamic drag resistance. Because, electric vehicles, it's super important to extend their range, and range anxiety plays a huge part in like buying electric vehicles or choosing like which trips to take with them. If you have, because a lot of people have internal combustion engine vehicles and electric vehicles in the same house. And so by, reducing that aerodynamic drag, you can extend the range significantly, since that's like the major force acting against the vehicle on the interstate.
I read your paper, and it was pretty heavy in math and equations, so I appreciate having a high-level overview of your paper. What are some challenges in the range anxiety from an engineering perspective, and also from a human psychological perspective, in your opinion?
I guess I'll start with like the human psychological level. So say you commute, daily. A lot of people that I know commute between here, Cookeville, and Nashville. That's a pretty common one. And that's, around 100 miles. And so, a lot of current electric vehicles, they can comfortably get you to Nashville and back for your daily commute. And a lot of electric vehicles, even if they're not used for like long road trips and things, people can still use them for their daily activities. And that's why a lot of people will have, an internal combustion engine vehicle and an electric vehicle. But a big step is trying to get it to where the electric vehicle can meet all of your needs, just like a current internal combustion engine vehicle. And that's sort of like the next step where it needs to go, because if I'm going to take a trip to Florida, like an 8-hour drive, I'm going to have to stop multiple times to charge, and the charging is going to take, cumulatively, it's going to add up to hours added to my journey. That's already a long trip. And a lot of people just can't get past that barrier. You can drive these vehicles long ranges. You just have to make a little bit of a compromise on, how your trip's going to be planned out. And a lot of people don't want to do that. A lot of people, it makes them kind of nervous. What if I can't find a charger? What if they're full? All these ifs that can happen. And so as, technology gets better and the range is improved, the infrastructure is improved, I think it'll help people get over the psychological aspect of it, and they'll really come to see all the benefits that are sort of overshadowed right now by the limited range, And from an engineering perspective, it's really mainly all about the batteries. And I've told you before about like solid state batteries. The batteries in an engineering perspective would be the main limiting component for these vehicles, because they're safe and they have all these advanced driving strategy or technologies in them, ADAS systems. So they're really nice. It's called a solid state battery because lithium ion has a liquid electrolyte. And so the liquid electrolyte, it just allows for the, it's like it's why you see battery packs that look sort of like Capri Suns, and they're filled with this liquid that allows the electrolytes to move from the anode to the cathode, and that sends a charge, and then it moves in reverse when you're charging it. So the solid state batteries have a solid electrolyte. They don't have any liquid in them. And so that means that you can make them more energy dense. From things that I've read, they can be anywhere from 2 to 10 times the energy density of comparable lithium ion batteries. And on top of that, they're really flame resistant. They're not supposed to catch on fire at all. And so that's another big problem with lithium ion batteries. It's really hard to detect when they're about to catch on fire. And then even when they do catch on fire, it's not just like you can pour water on it, it's really hard to put the fires out. And even once they're out, they can reignite, so you really have to be careful with them. And the solid state batteries are also lighter, and they should be able to charge faster. I'm not sure what the charging technology is at right now with how fast they can get it to charge, but I've read that they're trying to get it down to like 10 minutes for a full charge.
The main barrier is for like range anxiety is if you forget to like charge your car or like the range, and the solid state battery could really change all that. So I'm really excited to see what we could do with the big adoption of solid state batteries in the future. So we're working on a project to see how replacement batteries can be added to charging stations. So can you go in a little about that?
Yeah, so a lot of times if you're really close to getting home, you say, and you have to stop and charge to get just an extra 10 miles of range, or you want to go on a trip, a short one, to go to the grocery store, but you don't have enough charge in your car currently, and you just don't want to wait to make a small trip, or you just need a little bit extra energy. So with this sort of design, you would have a modular battery pack in your trunk that would have a few lightweight removable batteries, and whenever you go to a charging station, you would take the batteries out of the back of your car, put them into a battery bank so they could begin charging, and then you would remove the modules from the battery bank that are already charged, put them in your car, and you would have instant charge, and you wouldn't have to wait if the chargers were taken or just for the time it takes for the chargers to charge your car. So that's sort of the idea about it, is a little bit of a shorter range extension that you can get instantly and you don't have to wait for.
Implementation of that would be challenging, but I think like innovation and innovative solutions like that are really required for mass adoption. Like we see that one of the main projects what we're doing is the rural outreach, where we're having charging stations brought to the rural communities and having tests for F-150s with a jury-rigged EV system in them. So I really am looking forward to what we can do with increasing the outreach, because right now I see a lot of pushback in EVs, and I was definitely one of them in the past. So I'm really changed my mind in the last few years seeing some of the newer cars, the Rivian. Have you take a look at those? Or,
yeah, so the ride and drive events that we do with letting people come out and test drive vehicles, a lot of companies come out and show off their cars, and they're all super nice, but the Rivian, it's quite a vehicle. It's pretty nice.
Yeah. I just came back from Austin and I saw a Hummer EV and I was like, what was that thing? It was huge.
Yeah.
The Rivian's really excited for, but also the Ford Mustang, that polarized about the name, and I don't really think it fits. And I know our advisor, Dr. Chen, has one, but do you have any opinions on his car?
Yeah, overall, I'll start with saying that, I like the car. It's a nice car, but I think, the main criticism I've heard from it is just the name they chose for it is a Mustang, and it has the Mustang logo, but it's obviously not a traditional Mustang body style. It's more of a crossover SUV type of style. And, I've never been a diehard Mustang fan or anything, so personally, I'm not too, picky about it, but I know a lot of people are.
The Ford F-150 Lightning, I saw one out here, and that definitely still resembles the F-150 truck.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that Mustang, it just bothers me that they're basically just using the name to bring attention and marketing to it. I guess Ford really thought that the Mustang name was worthy of being changed like that. Because when you think of Mustang, there's so much tradition behind it. It kind of hurts some of the...
Well, if their main goal is to sell cars and get people talking about electric vehicles, and they don't want it to just, be swept under a rug and ignored as some electric vehicle project that no one cares about. And so even, even though some people have, negative views on it or, differing views, it gets it talked about. And, we're talking about it right now, aren't we? So it's how do you differentiate, that gets us talking about that vehicle compared to any other electric vehicle right now. So it's sort of a good marketing strategy, in my opinion, for trying to, increase, notoriety for it.
Yeah, that's true. Just people, including me, that I plan on getting a classic ICE car, internal combustion engine, and just keep it for as long as possible. I hope that they still continue to make fuel in the future, because some of the legislation about EVs are kind of unrealistic. Like, the 2035, they're not going to sell EVs in California. I don't know what any set in stone plans for the rest of the country is. But what do you think about some of the push from the government or from industry to really cut down on ICE cars, and is it even worth it?
So it's one of those things that you look at the quality of electric vehicles currently, as far as, the vehicles themselves, interior and exterior, pretty much the same as a traditional vehicle, maybe a little bit different style, but the overall quality is the same. But then there's another factor, the quality of life, as far as just being able to drive and refuel, and the convenience factor that the electric vehicles don't really have right now. And the internal combustion engine vehicles, whether you are all for electric vehicles or not, you have to admit that internal combustion engine vehicles are way more convenient, and they're just more capable right now as far as range and quickness of refueling and ease of use from day to day. So, but it's one of those things that the electric vehicles aren't going to get to where you need them to be unless you make a push. And there's a lot of stuff that has to be pushed. You have to push promotion of actual sales of the electric vehicles, and that is because in order to increase the infrastructure to make it more convenient to charge, make chargers more, available. You see how many I don't know how many gas stations in this town, like 10, 15, I don't even know, but you can count on one hand how many charging stations there are. And you got to think internal combustion engine vehicles are a lot more convenient, but that's because, number one, you can just pump fuel into them, and number two, the infrastructure is set up for internal combustion engine vehicles. Electric vehicles don't have that yet, and in order to get the proper amount of funding to build all this infrastructure, you're going to need to show that people are going to buy these electric vehicles, because you're not going to put out all this infrastructure without people actually buying the vehicles. And So I think that's kind of what they're trying to do with this legislature. They're not just trying to say, internal combustion engine vehicles are bad. You can't use them anymore. We hate them. It's trying to give this a little bit of momentum to help it grow faster. And that's sort of my opinion on like the California's laws with internal combustion engine vehicles, whether it's really fair or good, I guess time will tell how that plays out. But I can kind of see what they're going for, or at least what I think they're going for.
Yeah, I agree in most part. One thing I'm interested in researching is the amount of infrastructure that needs to be built by the time that they want to hit those goals. Because if you look at, here in Tennessee, so much of the power is coming still from fossil fuels, coal power plants. There's some push for, renewables, solar and wind, and some hydro when you can put it there. But I really hope the power that's powering EVs in the future will be as renewable or sustainable as the message of EVs of themselves, that you're driving a car that has no emissions. And if your emissionless car has a charger that's coming from a coal power plant, I kind of see some contradiction in that.
Just to expand on that a little bit, it's a lot of people like to take two sides on the zero emission aspect of electric vehicles. Some people will say, oh yeah, it's perfect, no more emissions, it's great, the climate change is, it's canceled, don't worry about it anymore. And there's other people that say, oh well, it's actually worse because of the upstream energy production, you're still using coal and all this. And I can confidently say that it's not worse, because internal combustion engine vehicles are only like gasoline powered vehicles are usually around 23% efficient at converting fuel into usable energy to move the vehicle forward, whereas electric motors are 90% efficient, and a big coal power plant is going to be a lot more efficient at generating and storing energy than your car is going to be at using it from your tank of gasoline. And what electric vehicles are doing, they may not be completely solving, an emission problem, but they are creating a foundation for it to be solved. So once, electric vehicles are adopted and they surpass internal combustion engine vehicles, then you can start working on the power grid as far as working on nuclear energy, solar, wind, renewable, because it lays out the basis for an emission-free transportation platform from energy generation to the usage of the energy and everywhere in between with zero emissions. Again, it's not there yet, and that's an even more ambitious goal than getting people to adopt electric vehicles and making them more, comfortable for people to use and have less range anxiety and things like that. But it's looking long term, they present the beginning of a solution to a problem.
It's pretty brilliant, I think, that the throttle response from an ICE car to the output, which is like your wheels, there's so many systems that have to convert the position of your throttle, and then it goes through a butterfly valve to check how much air is going into the intake and create the power. For an electric vehicle, when you push down the pedal, it just sends a sine wave into the motor, and then that motor directly translates that into rotational energy. I just think it's very clever that there's so many. That's the reason why controls is so important for electric vehicle. It's all the throttle response is electric, and then the output is coming from electric motor, and all the automatic, lane keeping and self-driving technology that all builds on the foundation of your throttle. And that's something that I'm really interested in and excited about for future electric cars. What do you think about self-driving in general?
Self-driving is pretty cool, and that's one of those topics that I'm sure that Tesla or even Ford, from these conferences I've seen where people will have been going back and forth between universities and companies both, and there's plenty of examples of very, very capable autonomous vehicles. At this last conference, there was a Chinese graduate student, and I forgot what university he was from, but Zufei told me it was like the top one in China. And their presentation was over a fully autonomous bus, and they had a like 15-minute video of it out on the road picking up people and dropping it off like just on the streets, and there was no driver, and it could handle very large and complicated roads, and not just, it's not just driving down a rural country road like in Cookville. It's in the middle of a city doing this. And the problem with it becomes, what are you willing to accept as an acceptable level of error with these systems? I think it's something like in the high 90s percent of vehicle accidents are caused by people. It's people's fault, drivers' fault. And with these autonomous vehicles, you can get them to where they're 99%, they handle 99% of the situations that you would see daily. But then there's always a what if kind of factor. And that's where it's really hard to make a really robust autonomous and self-driving feature, because there's always going to be that one scenario that you don't plan for, and then something bad is going to happen. If someone gets killed, who's liable? It's the people that make the self-driving car or feature of it. And so that's pretty scary to have to put something out there like that, where you're driving people around in a pretty dangerous environment. And on top of that, I think when there's more autonomous vehicles on the road, it's going to be easier to implement them. So it's going to be like an exponential kind of growth. It's going to start out slow, and it's hard because almost all vehicles on the road, are driven by people. And so whenever you're driving, if it was all autonomous vehicles, you could have a pretty good idea of what they're going to do in what situation. I'm sure you understand just from driving through town, you're like, I have no idea what some of these people are going to do. There's no rhyme or reason. They just do it, and they make mistakes. They make mistakes a lot, but you as a person can see them making a mistake. You can see them approaching a traffic signal and they're going too fast, and you can tell, oh, they're going to run that red light. I need to stop. It's like, how do you get all of these, you could be able to tell that if you had the information on all the vehicles, how fast they were, how far away they were from the intersection, and if they had time to stop or not. But that's another thing. They need to be connected to have that sort of information. So I think it has potential, but I think that's a really lofty goal for the real implementation of full self-driving. And there's some companies doing it, like Einride. They're a shipping company, a trucking company that's using fully autonomous vehicles that don't even have a cab for a driver. They are just they remote monitor them, and they're doing some test runs with their trucks are on the road now, and they're doing some test runs with different companies to get more data and improve it. But I think in my lifetime I'll see a good amount, if not full adoption of self-driving vehicles, just not really soon. That's probably more of like a 40 to 50 year type of situation.
It's a weird thought to have both self-driving and then human driving cars on the road at the same time, because one thing, like from a programming challenge, is programming human motivation and errors and just split-second decisions. Like the amount of challenge having like human consciousness programmed into a self-driving car is, I don't know how they would have to tackle that without just saying, we're not going to even focus on that until almost every single car is going to be electric, and then we're not going to worry about the niche of the people that are still driving their own cars. And that's also brings up other issues, about who's liable if your car that you aren't personally driving gets into an accident, or what the priority is if it's going to decide to try to self-preserve the driver and the car, if it has like other have different variables coming at it. I don't know how the legislation is going to be a part of that, or if there's going to be the companies are going to have an agreement, or if it's just going to be a Wild West free for all.
Yeah, and again, that's one of those hard questions that I don't really think no one knows the definitive answer of that right now. Some people may have strong opinions on it, but no one could tell you how that's going to play out. I don't think anyone has that sort of foresight right now.
Yeah, I see like Tesla advertising their full self-driving package. That's an option for, I think it's close to $10K right now.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say it's false advertising, but that I'll put a little link up here for the different levels of autonomous driving, where level 5 is basically you have no input at all, and level 0 is you're still driving it yourself, and there's various levels in between. But I still think that level 5 is we're like you said, like a couple decades away from a complete insular network of self-driving cars talking to each other, being able to completely manage their motivations.
Yeah, and I think it'll pick up, development on this will pick up a little bit now. Now the electric vehicles have sort of proven that, hey, big automakers, we're not just a fad, we're not just a gimmick. Like, they saw Tesla's success, and Tesla, had a market cap evaluation that was higher than like all the other major automakers combined, and you can't just ignore that. So you have to respect, where the market's going, where the money is moving. And so you can see that in these conferences I go to. A lot of times they'll have industry people come in and talk to us, and all these automakers are pumping billions of dollars into electric vehicles, autonomous vehicles, all this new technology and research, and it's really impressive with some of the work that they're doing. And I think now that Tesla has shown success, I think that definitely helps wake everyone else up, like, oh, okay, we got to get some skin in the game here, and that little bit of competition is going to help really drive innovation. And competition always is a good thing for the consumers whenever it's the companies doing the competition, because it can not only lower prices but just make the actual product better. Because a lot of people were complaining about some things with Teslas feeling sort of cheap, like some of the plastics that they use, and the manufacturing quality, not necessarily the software or like the motor per se. The battery, the motor, and the software are all pretty top tier, but a lot of the paneling wouldn't be lined up perfectly, or it feels sort of like some stuff would be plastic that shouldn't be plastic. And I'm sure with the higher end models that gets a little bit better.
I heard Elon say that the biggest challenge isn't the design or the theory, but the manufacturing process to bring an idea into paper. And I just drove by the Gigafactory in Austin, and it's an impressive building.
Yeah.
Massive. And this is a drone video that they did. I'm gonna have it's gonna pop up right here. You just have to watch it. But I also heard Eric Weinstein, he's a Ph.D. He said that Tesla is a battery company that makes cars, and also a lot of the car manufacturers are really focusing on software right now to handle some of the hardware. Like, how a lot of the cars have big screens instead of HVAC controls now?
Yeah.
One thing I heard, the theory was, if you don't have the physical controls, then you don't have to manufacture or design any of that user input. You can just have a big screen that controls everything. So it's a software issue at that point. You don't have to go through all the quality control of how many life cycle tests of how many clicks you have.
Yeah.
You just have a screen. But in one sense, it's probably going to be expensive to replace something like that. On the other hand, from the the accountant's point of view, it really solves a lot of problems.
Yeah, well, hopefully, you wouldn't have to replace it. And if you do replace like the screen portion of it, then that's like, all of it's replaced. So even if a bunch of stuff messes up, then you replace that screen, then it's fine. Because with a normal car, a lot of people like the buttons and the tactile feel of turning a knob to increase the volume or pressing a button on the actual dashboard. But I think with the way that they're going with sort of a minimalistic feel and the touchscreens, it kind of makes sense in a vehicle because you don't really want a lot of distractions. But I say that, and then I get into these new vehicles, and
a big iPad in front
yeah.
of
So I drive like a cheap 2012 Hyundai Sonata, and it's just a basic car, and the fanciest thing that thing has is Bluetooth in it. But
Really?
yeah, so I drove to Knoxville this past weekend to stay with some friends, and I drove my mom's 2021 Chevy Traverse, and man, the difference in quality between 2010 and 2020 in vehicles is amazing. But I found myself almost like overwhelmed when just trying to use like Android Auto to find my route, and there were almost like too many settings, and everything's on that dashboard, and I kept just feeling drawn to it to try and like mess with all these settings and mess with all these different things. And so that's one thing to keep in mind, because I know Tesla too is showing me all these settings. It's not a bad thing because you can always change these settings when you're parked and everything, but there's something to think about. You have these nice big touchscreens that look really nice. They have all these nice animations on them and designs, and it's like, why are you trying to get me to look at this, so much?
Or you're going 80 on the freeway.
Mm-hmm.
Just so much to get into it on that, from the like you said, like you're drawn to it. Like, we're programmed at this point. If you have a smartphone, like a Pavlovian response to go to the touchscreen, they're designing animations, trying to make it look pretty. I don't know if they're designing it to be functional, but if you have to go through 10 menus to get to what you want to go to while you're trying to drive, and you want your heat on if it's cold in winter, it's not really I saw a study that it's 3 times worse than drunk driving. The amount of time you're distracted,
Oh yeah.
I don't know if that's completely true. I'll look it up, but yeah, it's pretty bad how your eyes they're tracking them when you're looking at your touchscreen compared to looking at your phone. It's the worst one.
Yeah, that reminded me of you said that tracking your eyes and stuff. Like, I remember, I can't remember if it was Tesla or what car company this was, but I do know that Tesla, you have to have like your hands like touch the steering wheel a certain amount of times per like minute or per hour or something to keep the car going in its whatever highest level of autonomy that it has. Level 4, I think, is the highest one that you can actually get right now to be on the road with. And people would take like clamps and put them on the steering wheel, and there was one that a car company was trying to do this thing where they would track like your eyes to make sure you're looking at the road, and they would like give you a notification if you weren't. And this one was more of a joke, but someone like put a string with 2 ping pong balls on it to try and fool it. So people are that's another thing with really any new technology that you make, and especially one that could be as dangerous as a vehicle. There's always going to be people trying to cheat the systems that you put in place for safety. There's always going to be people that, you can buy the things that are like the seatbelt clicker without the actual seatbelt. So you just click it in, and then it'll tell the car that it's buckled, but you don't actually have a seatbelt buckled. And it's like, people do this stuff against their own best interest, and there's plenty of information, and I'm sure they're well informed of the safety of seatbelts, but they just don't want to wear them and stuff like that. So there's always going to be pushback with no real, and that's the same thing with arguments against electric vehicles, in my opinion. You don't have to buy an electric vehicle. You don't have to like electric vehicles, but being completely against them, as some people are, there's really no basis for it, in my opinion, because it's not hurting anything or anyone. And it's just trying to solve a problem in the world. So, yeah, they may not be perfect right now, but nothing's perfect right away. It takes time.
Yeah, I used to be one of those people that was like, oh no, the EV's coming, they're going to kill all our high-revving sports cars. I'm still planning on getting a Porsche GT3 and just try to keep it as long as possible. In the future, maybe change the fuel system to take E85, so I can just synthesize that in my backyard in case they stop selling fuel. But yeah, I think my opinion now is if we want EVs so that we could keep ICE cars as long as possible, because if they're gonna stop selling fuel, or if there's a limited amount of fuel, then why wouldn't you want every other car to be a EV if they don't really want to drive a gas car and waste potential fuel that you could be driving?
Yeah.
That's kind of a selfish reason. Amount of manufacturing techniques or design that, cars like you talk about Tesla's manufacturing quality. I saw the new Lucid. Have you looked into that?
Yeah.
Or we talked about Rivian before, but they looked incredible. I was just at the Circuit of Americas for the US GP, and there was this Lucid Air that was just the road presence that it had. It was incredible. It doesn't look like anything that is out there right now.
Well, I to speak on that point, I just saw the Nissan Leaf that I'm going to be doing that modular battery project on. I think Max was driving it around just to, get it moving, not have it be sitting for a long time. But that's a 2015 Nissan Leaf, and you can definitely tell, like, these electric vehicles, when they first started coming out, everyone was trying to be like, all right, let's make them look futuristic, sort of, this is the new thing. This is the next big thing. So we want to make them look, cool and new and unique. And a lot of them just ended up looking super ugly. Like the early models of the Nissan Leafs with the big bulging like bug headlights, it's horrible. I don't know what they were thinking. And then at some point they sort of shifted, and there's still some cars that make it look kind of wonky, not really traditional, but they look all right for the most part. They don't look bad. But most of the electric vehicles, like you can see with the Ford, the F-150, and that one's super popular, just looks like a truck. And they were, I think the automakers finally got it in their head, well, some people are hesitant towards electric vehicles, and the Nissan Leafs, the original ones, were super ugly. And so what if we just make them look like normal vehicles but nice and electric? And I think they've had a lot of success with that. And they can go, they modify them a little bit from there, add some, nice new features to highlight the electric aspect of it. But for the most part, you don't have to, it's like you don't redesign the wheel. It's like, okay, yeah, so you have a different fuel source and it's a lot simpler mechanically to work. You don't got to make it look crazy. Just make it look nice, like a nice clean vehicle, and then people will want to buy it, And that also helps ease the transition between, buying an electric vehicle and an internal combustion engine vehicle. For a lot of people, if they see that the two vehicles are, a lot of people get in them and be like, wow, this is just like my car, except it's new and really nice. So I think it helps with how they're being manufactured now and how they're meant to look, with helping people be more comfortable with them.
Yeah, there was one F-150 Lightning here. I think it was just one of the employees here, but it was basically just F-150, but instead of having a big V8 in the front, or if you like having an EcoBoost, instead it has a big battery pack on the bottom. Everything else is basically the same. There was pretty cool, basically the same car if you sit in it, and then you sit in your old internal combustion engine car. Like, the familiarity is there. It's comforting that it's all the buttons are where you want them to be. Your seat and your driving position. It eases the fear of the transition to getting more mass adoption of EVs. And like, even though I kind of do like the retro futuristic feel that they're definitely going for, I think there's going to be a market for both. Like, there's going to be the early adopters that want the crazy Tesla Roadster or the Lucid Air or the Rivian. Even the Rivian. At first, I didn't like the little
like oval, like up and down vertical ovals.
Yeah, it kind of looks like an anime character or something. But there's going to be the market for I want a car, and it doesn't need to be. I don't have no preference over internal combustion engine or EV. And like you said, there's so many creature comforts of having no road noise from the engine. Like there's so much vibration coming from, you know, when the cylinders spin, it's never going to be perfectly still, no matter what configuration. You're going to be a V8 or a flat plane even, or a straight. So the EVs, if you've never been in one, like it's so very comfortable. It's pretty much the perfect city going car if you don't have to go very far. And yeah, I mean, we talk about EVs so much, but even though I love ICE cars, I'm really looking forward to I don't know, a future where we can have very high quality, high range EVs.
Yeah, you know, I like ICE cars too, but unfortunately I am a poor graduate student, so I don't get to play with the nice ones. And my grandfather, he works at GM's headquarters in Michigan, and he loves cars, and he rebuilds like classic muscle cars in his free time.
Specifically, which what cars?
Oh, the last time I went up there, he had a 68 Mustang that was one that I remember, and then a 70 Cuda, and nice. Those two are the only two that I specifically remember. But and he had he just likes to play with. He had like 8 total, and his favorite was I went up there in 2016, and he had a 2012 Tahoe, and he completely took out like the engine and put in a V8 Corvette engine, and it completely ridiculous and overkill. But you step on if you floored it in that thing, it would just lift you back. It was crazy.
So it was rear-wheel drive?
Yeah, and it was super fun to play with. It got like 8 miles per gallon. It was ridiculous. But I mean,
cool.
Yeah.
Any pictures, then I could definitely show them off.
Yeah. I lost the phone that I had all the pictures. I took a picture of like everything up there, but I lost all of my pictures on my phone.
That sucks.
So.
But yeah, it's definitely cool that he worked at in GM. I don't know if he has any opinions on the Mustang. They're messing up.
Yeah, I haven't asked him about that.
Yeah. But what is his opinion? What do you think his opinion would be on EVs?
You know, I was talking to him whenever I graduated here. You know, I was pretty sure I wanted to get a master's degree, and then Dr. Chin offered me when I was working on my master's. My master's was actually in internal combustion engine. I was in the middle of writing a paper about selective cylinder deactivation, where if you don't have a heavy load and you're just coasting on the interstate, you can shut down 3 of your 6 cylinders, and because you don't need them if you're not towing anything, you're just coasting, and then that would be more fuel efficient. But halfway through getting that master's, he offered me the direct to Ph.D., and it would be over electric vehicles and working with controls or efficient driving strategies, but just electric vehicles in general. And I brought that up to his name's Dan, and so I brought it up to Dan, and he said that GM was pretty much going all in on electric vehicles with like research and development type money. So what you would be using with a PhD, because if you think about it, how much more can you optimize these internal combustion engine vehicles? They've been around for so long, and there's been so much science and
R&D.
and work, research put into them. They're about as efficient as they're going to get, and that stems from how you said, going from the throttle to the user input to the power output of the vehicle. You press on the pedal, and then all these different things have to happen in the internal combustion engine vehicle. And even then, when you just get down to a very high level understanding of it, the pistons go up and down, and the wheels go like this. So you got to take the energy going from one direction and translate it to another direction. You have to have all the gears to have different gear ratios and
efficiency losses through every single translation.
Yeah, and so it's there's not that much more you can really do about it. And electric vehicles, again, that's with the instant torque is nice. You press on the pedal, electrical signal gets sent, and then the motor spins. And so the motor is also, just a big magnet that you have in line with your wheels. So whatever way the motor is spinning, it can directly like transmit that energy to your wheels. and that's how you get like 90% efficiency with the electric motors, which is super nice.
Efficiency does an average ICE, petrol and then diesel.
Gasoline sits in the low 20s, low to mid 20s, and diesel sits higher at like I believe like 30, like in the 30s around there. So diesel's a little bit more efficient, and you can get more torque out of it, more power out of it, but it's a little bit more expensive.
And that's efficiency based on the energy density of fuel versus how much energy is coming out of the wheels.
Yeah, so it's like the amount of usable energy that you can transmit to your wheels versus like per unit energy of fuel that you have stored.
Yeah, 20%. That's a pretty low number.
Yeah.
Compared to EV, which is, like you said, like close to 90, almost 100%.
And that kind of shows how energy density has a huge room to grow, because if you're only getting 20% efficiency out of your gas tank, you're still able to go 400 miles in most vehicles. So with electric vehicles, I think the average is sitting at around like 200, 220, somewhere around there.
That's perfect driving.
Yeah. And that's, it's not terrible, but it's not great. It's enough for, it would be enough for if I wanted to, just stay in my city for a day and do my, daily needs. But for longer trips, it's still just not there.
Yeah. I drove to Los Angeles this year from Nashville, and then I just came back from Austin, and the amount of times I had to stop, I can't imagine stopping for, however long, 4 hours, a couple hours, just to charge my car, and then it'd take like a day trip to like, you have to stretch it out. You're going to add multiple days based on how long you have to wait, which is why I'm excited about solid state batteries, the amount of improvement in charging times that they're going to have. We talk about EVs a lot, and I appreciate it because I don't know, I feel like it's still kind of a boogeyman topic at this point, but that's what you've been working on for a long time, which is definitely, appreciate your expertise.
So I was, after my sophomore year, I had a 4.0 GPA, and I was going for an interview with this metal forming plant in Kentucky, and the guy, he looked at my resume and everything, and I called, and he called me, and we had a phone interview that was very brief, just to talk to me, and he said, everything on your application looks great, and you look perfect, but I'd like to have you come up and meet with me and have an in-person interview, just to make sure you're not like one of those like super socially awkward, and you can actually hold a conversation. And because it's sometimes, he said he'd had interviews with people with like perfect resumes, almost overqualified for the job, and he'd have to pass up on them just because they could barely even hold a conversation with them at all. And the job at hand, it was very important to be able to relay information between people in a very, concise and understandable manner. And so, that's another, engineering is, it's not all just math and science. It's important to be able to, what good is it, if you have all this research work and you can't tell someone what it means, or you can't, and not just at a conference, but like your boss. Like, I'm probably going to go into industry when I graduate, so it's a useful skill for me to have public speaking and be able to convey to, in a technical sense to my peers, and also in a more layman's terms to someone like a boss at a company that may just want, the numbers of how it helps, and not exactly why, It was like, hey, this increases our efficiency by 10%. And they'll be like, okay, that's great. And just, that was a bad example. That was pretty silly, but
yeah, I get what you're saying.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why STEM in general attracts people. I guess it's like kind of a trade-off major, but like the amount of engineers or engineering students that I've met is definitely higher in the terms of like being more introverted or not really being as social or being able to like hold a conversation.
Yeah. Just being able to sit down and be just like, if you went out to dinner with them, it's like you don't know what you would talk about. Like you just kind of be sitting there, you know. And a lot of that is more of that I've found. The more people that I actually am open myself with them, and just relaxed around them and talk to them a couple times, the more normal they come across. They don't see so reserved at first. I think it's more of a surface level type of
apprehension or standoff.
Yeah, it's more a little bit more reserved at first, but most people, if you really get to talking to them and they're not just weirdos, then they're fine. But
I'm sure they're thinking about something interesting. Like one thing I heard was the difference between introverts and extroverts. The extroverts, they're most of what's going on is in front of them. So like they live externally. They like having experiences and talking to people. Where introverts, a lot of what is going on, they're focused more internally. They think more introspectively, and they are a little more difficult to break down the barrier for like having the initial interaction and getting past all the the small talk and hi, how are you, who are you, are you a normal person? But it's definitely interesting, like some of the people that I've met that like I'm trying to like see who I want to talk to, and there's definitely people that are very interesting, but also I don't know how good on camera they would be.
Yeah.
But I think it'd still be interesting to like talk to someone like very in depth that is very into something, but are a little hard to like get to that point that they're comfortable.
Yeah. I think I would consider myself introverted, to be honest. I'm not very extroverted, but I had to, in my undergraduate, I worked at Planet Fitness here for 3.5 years. And so being behind that desk and having people come up and working with the general public for that long, you get pretty good at talking to all types of people. And I got forced like to talk to people, and it made me better at it and more comfortable with different types of people. And so just a little bit more relaxed in general.
Yeah, I have similar experiences where I worked as like a receptionist. I took people's name badges at a corporate office, and definitely, like I'm also pretty introverted, but at this point, like so much of the, I guess it is work experience, right?
Yeah.
That makes you like, it's talking to a stranger, because talking to your friends is easy, but like is being able to like, if you have worked a service job or if you've done something like you said, like a front desk, that is not not easy for most people.
Yeah, and you're just sort of forced to have these conversations because it's part of the job, but it does end up easing the transition between talking to friends and talking to just random individuals, and sort of makes it more uniform, the way that you approach people and speak to people. I feel like it can kind of make you be yourself more a little bit.
Yeah, it's a different part of you that you have to like train. Like it's kind of, you can kind of compartmentalize that. Oh, I'm just this guy right now. I'm just playing a role. I don't have to be myself and like, oh, who are you? Like we're just having like a transactional conversation. Not really having like, you're not really that interested. They're not interested that much in you, and you're not interested in them. So let's get this transaction over with, and we can get on our day.
Yeah.
But so when you came back from the conference, we ran into each other at the gym. We talked about how you were working at Planet Fitness, so your stabilizers aren't very.
Oh yeah.
Can you tell me about how long you've been lifting, like your fitness?
Yeah, so I started weightlifting my freshman year of high school because I was playing football, and I stopped playing football because I kept getting concussions. I had 3 concussions in 2 years, and a broken arm also.
Which arm?
My right arm.
And did you do surgery?
No, I've broken my right arm 3 times, but I've never had to have surgery on the arm. So, and it's all just been from sports. And I was, really skinny whenever I started playing. Like I was the same height that I am now, about 5'8", 5'7", 5'8", and I weighed like 115 pounds. And so I was kind of getting, pushed around a little bit in a lot of the sports that I played. But then I just stopped playing the sports and kept working out. And so I was able to put on like, about 50 pounds of muscle. And it's, it's nice. So.
Yeah, I had similar experiences when I was in like 8th grade, and it was like the summer from middle school to high school. They had the weight room open, and we had like a little spiel of, all right, every night you're gonna do, I forget how many push-ups. You do push-ups, sit-ups, squats, and then you're gonna have a glass of milk and PB&J before you go to sleep.
Yeah.
Just because they wanted us, because we're skinny little, 8th graders, 12 or 13 years old, and you got to put on that mask. Because when I got into high school, our school just won this conference championship, and we had some like monsters on our team that I don't know how 18-year-olds can bench like 400, 500.
Yeah, and it sucks at that age because some people can bench press like 400 pounds, and then other kids can bench press 80.
Or they can barely be starting at the bar.
Yeah.
By the time I think by the time I was finished with freshman year, I could do one plate. But at the beginning, I was like barely doing the bar with 95 pounds and 220.
Yeah, no, that's a lot of people, and when you're going into high school and you're a freshman and you're not just a naturally big person, then you're putting a little tiny 10-pound plate on each side, and you're getting your 10 reps, and then you're, man, I'm sore. Yeah.
You go hit the lunch room.
Yeah. Time for my peanut butter sandwich and glass of milk.
Oh yeah, there's chocolate milks every day for years, I still remember.
Yeah, but my stabilizers are just gone. They're just non-existent anymore. And so I've been throwing on 135 on incline and flat bench press and just repping it until I can't rep it anymore, just to try and build up those smaller stabilizer muscles, because the actual weight itself is pretty easy to push. I'm just shaky.
Yeah, do you ever get nervous when you're benching? Do you bench with a partner?
I'm solo in there, and that's why I just keep the 135 on there. And it kind of sucks because it's good to push yourself and go to failure, but I want to work out a little bit more with a barbell bench press instead of a Smith machine to get to there.
Yeah. So tell me about by the time you're done with high school and you started doing going to Planet Fitness, tell me about how Planet Fitness kind of changed your routines and all that.
So I stopped doing Olympic lifts like power clean because obviously they don't have the equipment for that. Yeah, they don't have barbells. And another thing was that I actually broke my arm one time doing power cleans because my spotter had left me on my last set of my last rep. Or my last rep of my last set, and
what do you mean he left you?
He just walked out from behind me, because we had spotters. This was in high school, and we had spotters where you do your power cleans. They'd be standing behind you, and so they would catch you if you fell back and sort of stand you back up. And so can
you just do the motion?
Yeah. So you're down on the ground and you stand up with it and sort of whip it like this and crouch under the bar to catch it right here. And I'd gotten it up, I'd caught it, but I'd sort of pulled it too hard against me, and so I fell back. And what you're supposed to do is you throw it forward to get it away from you.
Yeah, and then you fall backwards.
Yeah, and then you fall backwards.
And you're fine without the weight on top of you.
I fell all the way back, and I landed with my arm on the ground like this, and the bar right here.
Oh, so it kind of torqued it.
Yeah, and it broke I can't remember the name of the two bones, which one is which, but it broke the bigger of the two bones in my arm and sort of wrapped it. There was a big bulge on the bottom of my arm and a big bulge on the top. And I went to the doctor, and he said, I don't know how they didn't just bust out of your arm. And the silly part is that the breaking it wasn't even too bad, relatively speaking, because
even when the adrenaline stopped,
yeah. So the adrenaline kicks in. It's crazy because for the first 10 seconds you don't even feel. I'm looking at my arm
It's kind of not interesting.
Yeah, it's that doesn't look good, and then it really quickly just hits you like a wall. Yeah. Sorry, it really hits you like a brick wall, and the worst part was though, I'm not good with medical things. I like faint around. I have a hard time even walking into a hospital. And so I went to an orthopedic place right after it happened, and they said, okay, so basically, you're going to have it reset. You're not going to have surgery. We can reset it here, but we don't have any anesthesia, or you can go to the hospital, get anesthesia, do the whole process. And I said, no, just do it here. I don't want to go over there. And he's like, are you sure? I don't know if you want to. This type of thing isn't something that, you can just have a high pain tolerance for. Like bone pain doesn't, there's no tolerance for that. And I'm like, nope, I just don't want to go to the hospital. And so he, it was this pretty big guy, and he took both hands on my arm and just started slowly twisting it, and slowly twisting harder and harder. And I after about 15 seconds, I'm like, hey man, how long are you gonna like twist my arm for? And he said, well, I was planning on slowly doing it harder and harder for about 3 minutes is how long it'll take. And I said, can you just like snap it in? And he said, yeah. Just twist like that and get it aligned. He said, yeah, I can, but biggest mistake of my life. If you ever have the option to have your arm reset, take the anesthesia and don't have them do it really fast, because that's the closest I've ever got from just like actually blacking out from pain. Like my peripherals, like got tunnel vision, and like my ears were just ringing, and it was actually unbearable. I've broken bones, had concussions, tore things. Nothing compares to that. It was agonizing. I was screaming like a little girl. I actually had a buddy that his dad worked in the same building. He said he could hear me screaming on the floor above him because I was just yelling, bro. 15, 16-ish.
I can't imagine. I've never broken a bone. I got hit by a baseball in my nose, and I didn't block out, but I was just bleeding a lot. But I've never felt that much pain. Can you describe a little what happened after?
Oh, they gave me a pretty large dose of painkillers because it was really inflamed, and and I was in a lot of pain. And then I went home and I fell asleep for like 23 hours. I remember waking up, and I woke up and it was an hour before I went to sleep, and I asked my dad, I'm like, why is it 2:00? He's like, it's Wednesday. It's like, oh.
Man. Yeah, that's pretty good stories like that, but I can't place that anywhere. But I've done a lot of stupid stuff and fallen, and I've been very lucky of not like shattering or like twisting my ankle and not like having to do any surgery on anything. And that's a wicked story.
Yeah, it's
just asking him to just yank that.
It was, yeah, because I know I was like, I'm not kidding. Like I wasn't trying to be tough or thinking that it wasn't. I knew it was gonna hurt.
So how much did it hurt when he was just slowly and were you just?
I mean, it hurt pretty bad, and that's why, because he was going super slow and he was doing it harder and harder. But even just like touching it hurt, because I mean it's a broken bone in your arm, and if you move it at all, it's painful. And so I just thought, might as well get it over with.
Completely like snapped.
One of them was. The other one was completely fine. So
you just have to set it, basically, just get it back into.
Yeah, you set it, and then you put a splint on it until you can get a cast on there. And
then the bone will try to heal.
Yeah, it'll just like fuse back together.
Okay.
You can't. It depends on like the way the bone breaks. If you can always do that, sometimes you do have to have like something put in, like a screw or a plate, if it like fragments or shatters or something like that. But a lot of times for like the bigger bones, at least in my experience, I've broken my ankle, my arms, finger, wrist, and they didn't have to have surgery for them. Yeah, with the bigger bones that I've broken. But
yeah, how's that affected your lifts? Yeah, and then how was the recovery after that?
The recovery is just. I remember when I broke my leg was the most noticeable one, because
okay, tell me about that.
Yeah, I was in 5th grade, and I broke it playing football, and I was on crutches, and little 5th grade me, I didn't have any like upper body strength or muscle mass. So I was going around in the crutches all the time. I finally got some definitions in my arm, but whenever I took the cast off my leg, my right calf was about half the size of my left calf from where I'd just been hopping on that left calf. And, when you're a little kid like that, you don't have a lot of muscle mass to begin with. So whenever you lose what you do have, you look pretty thin. So, and that's always funny to see, every time I get a cast off, it's always like really, really pale and like skinnier than the other side of your body. And so it's always a good laugh to see. But it comes back really fast because like muscle memory and stuff like that. And so it's not really a pain to... It's the worst part about the recovery is the mental aspect, because even after you get the cast off, it's like, I don't know, you kind of got to test the waters with, what kind of movements and what kind of like weight you want to do with it. So, and, the doctor tells you it's safe, it's going to be safe and it's healed, but it's like a mental thing that you're like, this arm was broken and it's been hurting a lot. So now I'm going to go out and use it. And it's kind of,
tricky. You don't want to try to max out right after. You want to build up to a certain confidence level.
Mm-hmm.
The mental aspect is definitely like challenging in terms of you know how much you should be able to do. Like your body for the most part.
Right.
But when something catastrophic that like completely derails like your like why is it like like, is this ever going to be whole again?
Yeah.
Am I ever going to be able to do the same like things at the high level that you've been able to do in the past? Some people like don't really handle that very well.
Mm.
And like, can you tell me about like recovering like with lifting?
Yeah. So broken bones is one thing. I think it's a little bit different whenever you're talking about like a torn ACL or something like that. That's a little bit, you pretty much have to have a surgery if you have a bad tear on your ACL. And even then, I really don't think you can get back to 100% of where you were. Maybe if you push really hard and you're like a top level like athlete, you can get back to like 90, 95 maybe, but there's always that little bit of doubt in the back of your mind when you're really pushing yourself and you're thinking about it. Even if you think you're giving it your all, you can be just like a little bit reserved, like subconsciously almost, because like, well, at least for me, because it's just, broken bones aren't really, on my mind because they heal and they feel fine, and that was all.
Really?
Yeah.
You don't even notice it if you didn't know it happened?
No. I mean, maybe I'm just getting old. My birthday is actually this Saturday. I'm turning 25. Oh, thank you.
You're almost halfway to an old man.
Yeah. My dad turned 50. My birthday's on October 29th. His is September 29th, and I'm turning 25. He just turned 50, so I have to give him a hard time about being an old man. And so I don't know if it's just me or where I broke my bones, but my joints and my bones pop a lot, and like I do know that my right ankle, it's different on different days, but that's the one that I broke. And whenever I walk, some days it's consistent. So some days it's every other step, but there's a tendon in there that sort of slides over a bone and it makes a snapping sound. And so some days it'll be every 2 steps it makes a snap. Some days it's every 3, and some days it doesn't do it at all. But on those days when it's doing that, it's really consistent, and it's I don't really feel anything, but I can hear it, and it seriously just
that's crazy.
It just sounds like a snap, and that wasn't my ankle snapping, but
it's weird when you hear things in your body, or like something happens to your body and you don't notice it until like you see it. Like if I cut myself and I'm just bleeding, like I don't know until someone says like, oh, you gotta do you need a Band-Aid? And I'm like, what? Yeah. Or like you said, it's snapping, but you don't feel it at all. Like it's weird that like some of the nerves like don't have a reaction to your pain receptor.
Yeah, and a lot of that it's weird because it's not even, I don't even think it's linked to like the severity of it, because when I worked in that metal forming plant, I remember unfinished like metal products are extremely sharp. And I remember we had to wear long sleeve shirts, jeans, have special gloves on, steel toe boots, and I was leaning up against a rack of parts when I was like, I had to time this process over and over and over again. So I was there for a long time. And so I got tired of standing. So I started to lean on this thing. And when I leaned off, I just saw blood like on my arm, like running down from, and I had a big cut, like my shirt had blood on it, and I got cut, but I didn't even feel it when it happened. And luckily it wasn't super deep. I didn't need like stitches or anything, but it was enough to draw blood there, and I didn't even notice it until I was like riding and I saw the discoloration on my shirt. And so it's interesting how like, and a lot of times if you cut yourself with like a sharp knife on accident or something, you won't feel it as much as if it was dull and had like drag on your skin. So the human body's kind of weird like that.
Yeah, and everybody's different. It's like how like mechanically and pain tolerance and just
yeah, and it sucks because I definitely do not have a high pain tolerance, but I have experienced a lot of pain. It's not like you can just build up a tolerance, at least I can't, because man, yeah.
You can just keep on cutting yourself and then
you become immune to cuts.
No, I've seen memes of being immune to bullets and you start with a 22. That's a stupid internet joke.
Yeah.
But, so was that the same company that the guy wanted to interview you?
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little about that job?
Yeah, so that was, that was a more of like a lower level type of position, and I was split 50% on a factory floor doing just, sometimes I would time different processes, look for, go talk to the employees, because it was a metal forming plant, so a lot of things would just be, the employees on the factory floor would take a part from a bin, put it on a mount, press a button, take it off, put it in the next bin. And so I guess the two biggest things that I did was Ford was bringing a new like prototype part to this place, and so we wanted to do some research into how we want to make this assembly line. So we called the project Cardboard City, and I spent a week with two other interns driving around this 1.3 million square foot factory, gathering all the cardboard that we could find.
Was it like a go-kart?
Yeah, we had like the Gator that we have here, Yeah, and so we're driving that around, and we got a lot of cardboard. And so what we had to do after that was make, like fake molds, or like the type of what the assembly line would look like, but out of cardboard. And then we brought in people. Yeah. And so like we made the entire assembly line for every part that would be there out of cardboard. And we made some mock parts like out of cardboard as well. And then we got 5 people that worked on the factory one day, and we brought them in. We said, okay, yeah, here's your parts. Here's where you take them from and put them and do all, here's the work that you're going to be doing. And so we'd video it, and then we'd interview them after and be like, hey, how, if you're going to be doing this same movement for 8 hours a day, what can we do here to make it easier on you? Like, how did your body like feel doing this movement? What would feel more natural? And, what would you be able to do for a long period of time? And do you have any opinions on that? And we'd watch, the video from GoPro that we put in there, and, we could see some movement that may be, redundant or take a lot of time. And then the other thing I worked on was consolidating parts from 3 warehouses into 1 warehouse, and creating like an organizing like system for them. And I had to also develop in that warehouse they would then get the part, pack it, and ship it. And so I had to create that line, that process flow for them. And I just did the layout in some like AutoCAD, some AutoCAD software. So it was more like industrial engineering, to be honest.
Hey, we got off topic about the fitness. So how are your lifts now?
They're pretty good. I still haven't, the most weight I've tried on the barbell bench press is still just like 185, and I got it fine. I did like 3 reps and just called it there. I just haven't really been pushing myself too much, just trying to get more into the habit of going to the fit, instead of Planet Fitness, and using that barbell to get the motion down and the feel down. And, you know, I don't want to be sore just in like my stabilizer muscles and like on like, I want to be able to do 135 to where it fatigues my actual, you know, pec muscle. Yeah.
Just the accessories.
Right. Cause like I'm feeling like sore on my shoulders and like this bridge right here and sort of like around the edges. So the muscle there to actually push the weight, I have that. I just need everything else around it to catch up to that. And then I can start, you know, trying to actually go for heavy lifts and increasing my strength, you know.
Yeah, because when you're doing like Smith machine,
Mm-hmm.
like it really stabilizes it for you, so they're getting developed a lot more than your pec is going to be more developed than your stabilizers. So
Right.
when you're back at a barbell, it has to basically catch up
Mm-hmm.
all your stabilizers. So there's a level of homeostasis where your pecs are going to be as strong as your stabilizers, and then you can start putting on the big weight. But
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend trying to
No.
Smith machine and then I'm gonna do a 315 on the Smith machine. Let me do a 315 with a free weights.
Mm-hmm.
And even like going from barbell to dumbbells, like that's a pretty big step. Like right now I can go close to 225, and when I do dumbbells, I can't do over 100 pounds dumbbells. Like
Yeah. It's
massive.
Yeah, dumbbells are super hard, especially when you get to 70 plus pounds, you know, then it starts, you really gotta like focus on keeping them steady. And it's just something about it, you know, 135 pounds on a barbell is a lot easier to press than two like 70 pound dumbbells.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's just because they're not connected and your stabilizers are having to do even more or what, but it's definitely a noticeable difference.
That's something that probably Dr. Anton would know a lot more, because he works with like the medical.
Oh yeah, that's right.
There's some medical like mechanical engineering stuff that he's working on, like that piezoelectric sensor for the tip over femur. But yeah, that was, I don't know. It's being interested in fitness is something that I appreciate. Someone to talk to that's like an engineer, because like I don't know, there's some like stereotype that you have to be some pencil neck, scrawny nerd.
Zufei's been working out a lot too. You know, he's actually getting pretty strong, and he's taking it seriously with like his diet and his workout routine. So
he told me about his diet, like one of the things that he makes,
mm-hmm.
and I know he wants to cut out most of the carbs and the sugar, and I don't know. I went out with lunch with him on last Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, oh, everything has carbs in it, so don't feel bad. But,
yeah, I can't say anything. I'm terrible. I never do dieting. You know, I eat generally pretty healthy because my girlfriend and I, we cook dinner almost every night. And like last night, I had baked chicken thighs and broccoli, asparagus, and carrots. So I mean, that's like super healthy. But it's not because I'm trying to be. It's just because I like those foods. You know, which is fortunate for me, I guess. Yeah. Rice or any pasta. No, but you know, don't get me wrong. I do make spaghetti and meatballs, and
I don't think college students are that disciplined.
Yeah.
Like when you're 20, you're 25. So are you starting to feel, you know, your metabolism and all your bones starting to feel a little harder to warm up?
I feel it in my bones for sure. I don't know about, you know, my metabolism, because I have a hard time, you know, putting on weight as opposed to keeping weight off. And so if I don't eat just a ton, I'll just not gain any weight, and it's a pain. So I sort of have to force feed myself a lot to try and, you know, gain weight. But I do take I drink a protein shake every time after I work out, just for soreness and to get a little bit of protein in there. So
you take creatine?
My protein has creatine in it. It has 5 milligrams of creatine per serving. So I mean, that's really that's enough.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, I would appreciate talking about the gym. I'll probably talk to Zufei about his fitness routine. Like, what is your weekly?
See,
routine?
That's another thing. I don't even have a routine. I'm a terrible, role model for Zufei, because he'll ask me a bunch of questions about working out, and I'll tell him, Zufei, don't.
Are you his teacher? Like, did you not start before you
He started before me, but he does ask me some things about it. But he, like, I don't really work out my legs that much, it doesn't really.
Chicken leg thing.
Yeah, but since I'm shorter, my legs are decently thick, and so I'm well proportioned, so it doesn't look weird. If it looked weird, then I would work them out.
All right.
But
so do you not hit them at all, or do you just?
Not so. I'll do some I do running and then like stadiums sometimes out here, and the stair stepper for cardio. So I try and do cardio that activates the muscles more than just running, like. But no, I guess I would say no.
Yeah,
if I'm being honest.
I remember dropping 225 on my spotter when I was playing football, and after that I was just like, I really don't like doing legs either.
Well, it's like I go through phases of having a specific muscle group that I like to work, and I know it's like super inefficient and kind of dumb to do it that way, but it's like, would I rather have this routine that, is well balanced and is probably the most efficient to gain muscle and be healthy, or would I like to go to the gym whenever I want to, have a good time and get big chests and arms, Well, and when I look at it, when am I going to just squat 400 pounds, like, yeah.
I started doing them again just because I think it's fun to push heavy weight, but.
Oh, in high school, I could, I was at one point, I don't know what point this was, but I distinctly remember I couldn't bench press 135, but I could squat 3 plates. Because I played a lot of soccer growing up and lacrosse as well, and so those are just running the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
And from that, my legs were just way, way more developed than my upper body.
Yeah, that's funny. Those two sports, and even football is like mostly like you see football players they do that at the combine, the 25 as many times as they can, but it's almost all legs.
Yeah, no, it's super important just to be able to drive with your legs in pretty much all sports, and so I think that's sort of and I used to like working out my legs. I liked working out my lower body more than my upper body, but. Then, I got out of sports and I'm like, well, why do I need these things to be so strong? I need my arms to be stronger.
Oh, no, you're going to be that guy in a wheelchair with the jacked pose, but you have like the matrix legs that you never
Hey,
use.
man, who needs them, yeah.
What position did you play in football?
Cornerback and receiver, because I was, pretty skinny, like I said, but like fast. And so that was my go-to position. I was just really good at tackling because I was so small, I wouldn't try and just like ego challenge people and like hit them up high. I would always dive at their ankles and I wrap them up every time. And I got ran over and just plowed a bunch, but man, my coach, he loved it. He was like, that's how you play football.
Nice. So do you think your concussions have been any detriment to your brain?
Hard to say, because I don't really, because since it's my brain, there's not really, like, what standard do I use to evaluate that? Like, how do I tell what is just me as a person and what is affected by, that concussion?
External point of reference?
Yeah, so it's hard for me to understand. I feel like my memory is kind of garbage, but I don't know if that's just because I don't know if that's three. Only I had 2 severe ones. One was in high school, and I remember I actually tackled someone, but I had caught up to them, and I don't know exactly how it happened, but I basically pulled them back on top of me, and their butt landed on my helmet, and then my helmet landed on the ground, and so like it all 3 hit at the perfect time. Yeah. And I got a concussion from that, and I was the one calling the plays on defense, and so I was out for probably like only 5 seconds, but I completely blacked out, and then someone like was grabbing me and pulled me up, and then they put me in the huddle, and I'm just kind of like looking around, and they said, okay, what's the play? And I'm like, I don't know. And then I played another play, and I was just kind of standing around hoping they didn't run the ball to my side, so the receiver came out to like just block me because they just ran it up the middle. And so then I just ran off the field and talked to the coach, and I just said, hey man, I don't know what's going on. I don't know where I am.
So no one even like acknowledged that you were out for 5 seconds.
Well, you're in the pads and stuff, and so your eyes can be like open when that happens, and you're just like unconscious. But yeah, that was a pretty messed up one. And another one was in middle school. I got hit in the head with a baseball bat, like on a backswing. It was an accident.
Oh, so
like we were just warming up, messing around, because I played baseball.
Did you have a helmet on?
In middle school? Yeah. But it's still, it like shakes you and hits you. So, like, it was just me and this other guy swinging our bats, getting ready for batting practice, and I guess he was facing like one way, I was facing the other way, and I backed into him, and whenever he followed through on his swing, he caught me in the head and the back of it. So, and then that one, the doctor made me wear like sunglasses afterwards. Yeah, and
were you out?
Oh yeah, I was knocked unconscious for that one. That one was like about probably 10 seconds. I've never been unconscious for like minutes or hours.
Yeah, those they catch up on you, and especially repeated concussions.
Mm-hmm.
If you go back in the game and you get another one like right after you're out, that does a lot of damage.
That's why I quit playing football. And
what year?
Sophomore year. Yeah. So I played my freshman and sophomore year, and then I didn't play anymore after that. I kept playing lacrosse because that's a little bit less just slamming heads into each other.
But you still, when boys play.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, but you're not just like tackling each other. At least you have a stick to like whack them with,
Oh, yeah, you get a weapon.
Yeah. So, and I never got hit in the head by anything in lacrosse. So that was nice.
Yeah. That's one thing that I keep on thinking about is I've never been out playing football, and I just keep thinking about engineers that like they need their head to make their money to do their jobs. So if I think about like if I want to do like Muay Thai, or if I want to do any other like rock climbing, like is it worth not wearing a helmet or sparring with some guy if I get knocked unconscious, or like my memories goes, or my faculties go?
Yeah, but then on the other hand, you don't want to let that type of thing dictate what you really want to do. If you really wanted to do those things, I'd say do them, just because if it does affect, your mind in a negative way, that's obviously always a chance of it happening, but it just depends on how badly you want to do it. And if you really are passionate about something, then forget the consequences.
Yeah,
you can
that's
just
pretty much the advice. Like I've started doing climbing at the wall at the rec center, and started driving like race cars. And I don't know, when you're in, like, one thing that I really enjoy about those things is it brings you into the present. Like I don't know if you're into like meditation or anything, but the presentness that being in a sport that requires your absolute attention, like there's nothing like it. Like being in the zone or in the flow state is really at a level where your attention is being pushed, but it's not overloaded, but it's also not too boring. So it's like the perfect amount of challenge versus effort. And I really don't think about the consequences of when I'm going over 100 miles an hour, if I'm 50 feet in the air. It really is something that it's basically just meditation. Like you're there's nothing else that you're thinking about other than the present moment. Like, are you into anything like that? So
I'm not too knowledgeable about meditation, and I'm not going to pretend to be. I know a lot of people like that sort of thing, and I understand that it doesn't have to be traditional meditation where you sit there with your legs crossed and your eyes closed and you're just being quiet and introspective. It can be, meditation, in my opinion, can be things that you're just really, really drawn into, and that you can focus on only that, and that sort of thing. I like, I've been getting into golf lately.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm very bad at golf, as it's not an easy game, and it is very frustrating. But man, you have one good hole in golf, not even a good game of golf. Like for me, if I have one good hole, it can make the entire day that I play golf. So it's about finding things, you know, it is challenging, and I know that I'm bad, but it's one of those things that whenever I do well at it and you know, play it, you know, especially with my friends, I have a good time doing it, and it feels rewarding and nice. And just doing well one time can get rid of the frustration of doing bad on 17 other holes, you know. So
especially when you're drinking.
Yeah.
And you're driving the golf cart around. But yeah, I'm not that into golf. But we did have at my co-op a company thing for the Top Golf nearby.
Mm-hmm.
That was always fun to go to every once in a while.
Yeah, when we went to Atlanta for the conference, me, Sachin, Zufei, and Max and Brandon went to a Top Golf there. And
are they any good or not at all?
Max would probably be the only person that could do pretty well, you know. But I think Max is the only one that actually has really played golf. I mean, Zufei's never played golf before going there, so I can't blame someone for never playing golf and then not being good at hitting a golf ball, because it is not the type of sport you can just pick up and do.
No, this is just so much technique into I can't even barely get the ball off the ground. I'm trying to hit it like a baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Just I can't even talk about it because I'm not good at all. I'm probably as bad as him. But yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. It's been 2 hours.
Yeah.
So.
And time flies. Well.
Is there anything you want to talk about, or are you good?
Probably wraps it up for me. You know. Thanks for having me, though.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate you being the first person on, and also, is there anything you want to plug, or can I use your paper or show some of the links to them?
Sure. Yeah, that'd be fine. You know, they may not be published just yet at the time of recording this, because, you know, even after you present them at a conference, it can take several months to have them published. But.
Yeah, all right. Sounds good.